All right, we've been listening to Vice President JD Vance there in Lucerne, Switzerland, giving the press an update on the peace deal negotiations between the U.S. and Iran mediated by Qatar. Let's jump back to White House reporter Aaron Navarro. Aaron, one of the big standouts, we missed point number one from the Vice President, but we understand three major points he addressed: coordination mechanisms for the demining of the Strait of Hormuz, a deconfliction mechanism, he mentioned as point number two, for things like Lebanon and Hezbollah. And number three, he said the Iranians have invited the IAEA back into the country to monitor its nuclear program work. What jumped out at you from what we just learned?
Yeah, I think it was number three, the UN nuclear watchdogs coming as soon as this week to essentially be a third party to look at Iran's nuclear program or what remains of it. And that is a big step in achieving what the president wants in terms of at least controlling or really restricting Iran's nuclear enrichment program. That was a new point that we did not necessarily learn from some of the readouts in the initial hours after negotiations ended. I think also that when it comes to some sort of mechanism that the vice president talked about in deconfliction between Israel and Lebanon, that had been something that has thrown several wrenches in general when it comes to the diplomatic approach between the U.S. and Iran. You did not see the vice president there, though, say that they want Israel to retreat from southern Lebanon. That has been an ask of Iran in recent days, as they have threatened to close the straits over that conflict. So we will see if the U.S. language when it comes to Israel and their war with Hezbollah will accelerate or change in the coming days. Though the vice president did say that the last 24 hours, at least, has been relatively smooth in that conflict.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear what the vice president does and does not say in the Q&A portion of these remarks. He was also asked about Iranian funds being defrozen. He said there was some misinformation out there about how that would exactly work. Remind us what he said on that front.
Yeah, that was another newsy point where he said that Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, who has been crucial in these talks in the Middle East, worked with the Qataris to set up a sort of approval system should the funds for Iran be unfrozen. And the vice president said that the U.S. and Qatar will have approval over that money to make sure it doesn't go to fund any terrorist groups that Iran supports in the region. And apparently Kushner worked out a deal, which the vice president said is a very Trump-like deal, to where frozen funds that are unfrozen for Iran would be used to buy American soy, American wheat, food for the Iranians, as they have seen some of their worst inflation since World War II. So that is a notable development there. We'll wait to see more information and if there really was a green light given from Iran's side.
And Aaron, what else should we be looking out for, I guess, the rest of this week? Vice President Vance says he's leaving Switzerland now. This opens a window of 60 days of talks to solidify what's been agreed to. But what will you be watching out for?
I'll be watching to see any developments in the war between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, as that has really caused the stops and starts that we've seen throughout this diplomatic process. As the vice president mentioned, he's heading back to the U.S. Iran's delegation has already left, but there are still technical teams on the ground in Switzerland to work out some of the nitty-gritty details when it comes to Iran's nuclear enrichment, when it comes to the financial incentives for Iran, the lifting of sanctions, the unfreezing of assets, and what that looks like, as well as the demining of the Strait of Hormuz. There have been reports that there had been up to 80 mines that have been laid underwater there. As the traffic continues there, that'll be a priority to make sure ships are straight and ships are safe, and that manufacturers feel okay using that transit corridor. So I'll be watching to see that. And generally, if there's any reason for the vice president to return to Switzerland in the coming days, should any big progress be made. As he said today, it was mainly just a foundation that was set, and there's still a lot of work to do.
Aaron Navarro in our D.C. bureau helping us understand this live event as the Vice President speaks. Aaron, thank you. CBS News Middle East contributor Courtney Kealy joins us now. She was also listening in to this press update from the Vice President. Courtney, good morning. So we've got three topics that are to be discussed over these next 60 days. Iran's nuclear program, the fighting in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah, and the Strait of Hormuz. What do you think has the best chance of actually being addressed?
Well, first of all, I really want to address the vice president's language because he was very dismissive of the Iranians, and they watch every single thing that is said and done by the U.S. And so the words he used were almost as if Iran has been being childish. Now, when the MOU was signed, Hezbollah called it a great victory, and Iran, they put out a statement with Mojtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader who took over from his father, with an IRGC emblem, Iranian Revolutionary Guard emblem, signifying the unification of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. So even the U.S. did take out top leaders. There's a new leadership that's even more strengthened. The Strait of Hormuz, one thing, it can be open, but after 60 days in this agreement, it says that there could be maritime services that Iran and Oman and some of the Gulf countries take up. So does that mean that they all of a sudden get a toll, that they get to monitor the Strait of Hormuz, which is not what people want? Secondly, this waiving of sanctions, which isn't undoing sanctions. Congress has to do that, and we'll have to see how that goes. The waiving of sanctions, first of all, nothing addresses human rights issues. Nothing addresses 36,000 people approximately that were killed in January when President Trump urged them to take to the streets. This money will line the regime's pockets. It might not trickle down to the people, but maybe just enough to keep them from protesting over the inflation, because the real has crashed. So this deal is to continue to talk about it. A nuclear deal, this sort of taking down the uranium down to a non-nuclear state. It's called downblending or diluting. Will they do it in the country, or will they out of the country? Because if they keep it in the country, they can reverse that, according to people that know the physics behind this, the nuclear physics behind this. So that's also a problem. Nuclear is a problem. The money, when it comes into their coffers, and there's already billions of dollars already coming at tankers out, will it go into the regime? Will they start paying the salaries of Hezbollah fighters and their families again inside Lebanon? That is something that they do. They're not just, it's not an errant drone strike that the vice president just said that could happen. It's a well-oiled, practiced terrorist machine that knows when to fight. And the Secretary General covered Hezbollah, from Hezbollah, covered and ran the southern command of southern Lebanon for years. He's practiced since the 90s in this kind of guerrilla warfare. They probably won't do anything if Iran wants them to hold their fire, but we've seen Iran can also just hit northern Israel like it did 2 weeks ago to this day. So it's in Iran's interest to have these oil tankers go out, sell their oil, not just to China, but others, reap the billions, have the waivers to the sanctions, the money coming in to establish some sort of control over the runaway inflation and the crashed economy, but nothing for human rights, and really nothing mapped out about how they would go after the nuclear program. Now, last year, we saw the devastation of nuclear power sites, but there's still that cache of uranium, highly enriched. It could be downblended, it could not be. And it is excavable. You can actually excavate it. So it's there, it's sitting there. What are they going to do with it? What are they going to do with the centrifuges? And then one thing that just absolutely doesn't touch at all is ballistic missiles. It's an estimation by U.S. intelligence that 70% of the ballistic missile program is still intact. That is a real danger to Israel. It's a real danger to the Gulf countries and everyone in the region. That has not been decimated. They still have them. And with this money, would they actually apply to secretly then boost it up more?
Yeah, a comprehensive analysis there from our Courtney Kealy. Courtney, thank you so much.